Welcome back to Bray Sports Talk. Like always, I'm your host, Braden. Today, I have another special guest for today. He's a student support teacher, Mr. Morris.
How you doing, sir? Thanks for having me.
Very good. Glad to have you on the podcast. So, do you want to just jump right into the questions?
Anything you want to do, buddy. It's your show. I'm the guest.
All right. So, we're going to start off with the first question. What inspired you to pursue a career in education?
Ooh, that's a great question. So it's a question that I've been asked before, and as I look back upon it, so I'm a city boy, and I was once a young teenager who might have hung with the wrong crew and making poor decisions, and I went to Catholic school. And Catholic school is a lot different than public school. Teachers are older, sisters, nuns, things like that. And it was my senior year. One of, not a good teacher per se. I spoke to one of the Future Teachers of America Club, and by today's standard, this teacher was an awful teacher. Like, just sat at his desk, read notes to you, like, didn't learn anything. I don't even know what I had him for. He was a social studies teacher. But it was the first teacher in my high school career that actually showed an interest in my friends and I. Not an interest, but mentoring us and trying to teach us about making good decisions. And decisions that we were making were poor decisions. So it was that first teacher that really showed a personal interest in my friends and I life. And being that he was a social studies teacher, like I said, I was kind of a misguided, didn't know what I wanted to do, teenager. I don't know if the question will come up later on, but I was not someone that was college bound. My mother, God bless her, worked as a secretary for essentially minimum wage our whole lives at LaSalle University. Now, in exchange for that, if you worked at LaSalle University, your family members could go to school there for free. So my father, who's a Vietnam vet Marine, yes sir, no ma'am, instilled in me that your mother made these sacrifices so you could go to school. I don't care what you do, but you're going to go to school and you're going to get a degree because your mother sacrificed 17 years of her life to give you this gift. Yes, sir. So now I'm going to college. What do I want to do? And I thought back to that social studies teacher I had senior year and said, wow, wouldn't it be cool if I could be like Mr. Fellini? So I chose to become a teacher because of the influence that one teacher I had, just showing a personal interest in our lives, and I'm forever grateful for not only my mother but Mr. Fellini for having that influence on me.
Okay, that's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. That was also a great answer. Like, you just told me the whole story and everything like that. I really like that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
For the second question, was teaching always your first option? Or did you have other options?
All right. Here you're going to learn something about Mr. Morris here.
Oh, okay.
And you're going to laugh at me. So if I would have told you, all right, well, you don't want to go to Kevin. You don't want to go to college, Kevin. What do you want to do? I actually wanted to be a hairdresser.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah. You would never suspected that. So growing up in my neighborhood, I was the guy who would cut my boys' hair.
Yeah.
I'm the one.
I know what
you need. A freshie, you come see me. I'll hook you up. And then my best friend's uncle was a hairdresser out in Jean Madeline on the main line. So I'm like, wow, that would be pretty cool. You make your own hours, and you can make money and things like that. I didn't need an education, per se, a college education. So that's what I wanted to do before my father said, no, you're going to college. And then if you want to become a hairdresser, barber, whatever afterwards, you can do that. So I would say if there was one job that my senior year I wanted to do, I wanted to be a hairdresser.
That's actually awesome.
Yeah.
I never would have expected that from you too.
No, not at all.
They were going to say something like maybe being like a coach or something like that for a sport. but that's actually really awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question. You stepped into a new role at Wissahickon. What is the name of the role? And you already.
Go ahead. No, we could.
What is the name of your role, and what were your initial thoughts when you got it?
That's a great question. So I am currently, it's called student support teacher. So I was in the classroom for 18 years as a social studies teacher. Early on in my career, I got my master's degree in administration. I wanted to be a principal, but I do not envy that job, and I realized that I don't think that's for me. So I was prepared to be in the classroom for the next 18 more years. Then there was a circumstance that happened here. We lost an administrator, and they put out a job description for what was being sort of like a disciplinarian. And I shared with you earlier, I was a teenager who made a lot of mistakes in my life, and I had that one teacher, Mr. Fellini, and I said to myself, all right, this is something that I might be interested in. So I put in for it, and I was fortunate that they believed in me, and this is now, it's been 2.5 years that I've been what is titled as the student support teacher. So my job here is to handle discipline and things like that, but I also have an open door policy. Kids having any problems with other students, maybe with their teacher, personal problems, that's my job here. My job is all day long to support students and anything that they need.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that the school really had that job, so it's cool to learn something new about my school too.
Yeah, and it's not something that's necessarily, I guess they do publicize, but I'm not an administrator, I'm a teacher. Like, that's my job, to teach kids, whether it's how to behave better or how to manage stress or how to deal with situations. I feel like I can make a connection with a lot of students because of my story and what I've been through, so yes, I am the student support teacher here, and something that I love my job. Some days are more difficult than others. Some days are more rewarding than others, and every day's new. Every day's new.
I agree with that. All right, into the next question. How has your mindset as a teacher changed?
Oh, that is a good question. I would say my mindset as a teacher has changed. You have to change. You got to go with the times, you know. The way that teenagers are now, I know it's like that old adage, like, oh, these teenagers, and I know I sound like an old head saying it, but the pandemic and the shutdown and things like that, I mean, there were kids that were at home. School's a safe place for people, and kids that might have been at home in some unfortunate situations and might have not had the guidance and things like that for an extended period of time. It really changed things, and I feel that within like the last 5 years, the teenagers have really changed. So it's one of those things that just like, I'm a father and I have preteens and things like that, and life's different for them than it was with me. Technology, cell phones, like they're things that I didn't grow up with, and probably fortunate because, mistakes that you made are now captivated and can ruin people's futures and things like that. So I've changed. I think that like my morals and what I stand and believe in have always been the same, but just in this role, even more so than a teacher, when you hear some of the trials and tribulations that students have gone through, like, damn, like, wow, some of these kids are really going through some traumatic things at a young age, and the respect I have for them just to get up and walk in this building every day it's amazing. So I don't think I've necessarily changed. I think that my understanding and respect for students and their path that they've sort of been led down has been like an amazing story.
Everything okay?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
This is Dr. Haney who just entered in here.
Yep.
We are on the podcast club. Dr. Haney, you're coming into a live broadcast.
Yep.
That was Dr. Haney. She just came in
Yep.
to say hello, to check on Mr. Morris, make sure he's having a good day.
Yep. All right. Next up, we got our next question. Do you have a certain routine to get pumped up to deal with the start of the workday?
Oh, do I have a routine to get pumped up? Mr. Morris is not a morning person. I am more of a night person, so I go to bed too late and sleep in as long as I possibly can. On the way to school, it's really funny. Now, these are questions I've never even thought of. I'm usually listening to a podcast, Joe Rogan podcast or the Theo Vaughn podcast.
I do too.
All right, and then when I get close to school, that's when I turn on my Sirius radio, and I don't think it would be surprising, but Mr. Morris is definitely a more hip-hop type of music, so I'll turn on Shade 4-5 on Sirius XM, try to hear a little song just to, just to get me in the flow of things. It is, I would never think, do I have a daily routine, but now that you just asked that question, I find myself waking up, getting ready, putting on the podcast, getting my cup of coffee, and I'm just listening, and then like 5 minutes for work or like a couple minutes left, that's when I'll put on one of the hip-hop stations and try to find some music that hits right before I walk in the door.
That's a great way to get your day started.
Yeah.
Wonderful way. All right, next question. Now this is what I heard, okay?
Go ahead.
I heard you and Mr. Cairns are related. I heard that, actually.
I actually just saw Mr. Cairns outside my door. Interestingly enough, yes, Mr. Cairns and I are related. We are first cousins.
Wow.
My father and his mother are brother and sister. Now, as you know, Mr. Cairns, sometimes I refer to him as my uncle because he's significantly, no, I'm joking. But yes, we are first cousins. On the Morris side, I was the youngest of the cousins, so a lot of my cousins are older than me. My brothers are older than me, and
I'm kind of like that too.
Mr. Cairns is my first cousin.
Okay, now the next question, diving into that. Growing up, were you both competitive with each other?
No, not at all. Just because of the age gap. How old is Mr. Cairns? Is probably like 8 years older than me. Mm-hmm. So, while he was a teenager playing high school football, I was a little kid. When he went to college and playing college ball, I was still a little kid. So there was no competitiveness between us ever. Always good relationship, always a good big cousin. Now having the opportunity to work with him, there's no competitiveness, but I really, really cherish not only being able to work with someone who is in my family, but someone just who has a wealth of knowledge, intelligent guy, and I often go to him and just ask for like suggestions and input. So, excuse me.
You're all good.
No competitiveness. More like he's always been like a mentor towards me, someone that I look up to and highly respect.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I get that. I'm like that with like my older siblings, my older cousins, because I'm significantly younger than everybody else in my family.
Yeah.
All right.
How old is you have a sister, I know, Victoria?
Yep. Sister, so I have 4 siblings.
4 siblings.
Oldest is my oldest brother, John. Then there's Tori. Then there's Joe. Then there's Victor. And we've all went to Wissahickon.
Okay.
So it's just always running the family just to come to Wissahickon.
And as you know, I had your sister as a student in her sophomore year, 10th grade social studies.
Oh, really?
Class. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How was she in that class?
She was awesome. She's always been a good girl.
Okay.
I don't remember. And then that's the thing. The academics part, you're not going to remember most of what you learn, what you make that connection with students and how you carry yourself. That's what we remember as teachers, not like, oh, they were the smartest, I remember Victoria just being a good girl, and now seeing her as an adult with grown children who worked at my son's daycare, it's awesome to come full circle.
You're right about that.
Yeah.
All right, so now we get into the last career question before we get into what this podcast is about, which is sports.
Talk to me.
So, last question is, what's one thing in the educational system that needs to be changed, in your opinion?
Great question. First thing that pops to my mind would be the importance of testing. I share with a lot of my students. My son, who's 12 years old, is learning disabled. He has a specific learning disability, and testing is not his strength. Testing was not my strength. And unfortunately, our society, schooling, and it's not Wissahickon, it's, federal standards, state standards, just put such a weight on high stakes testing, and testing is just such a small part of a kid's educational career. I understand it. You need some type of baseline measurement data, all of that, but no test can ever tell an aptitude of a student. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, so I would say if the one thing that could change, if I could wave a magic wand, would be less high stake testing and the SATs and ACTs, all of these different things that hold such a high weight. That I'm not saying to get rid of stuff like that, but just the weight of students and the weight that they put on the importance of these testing, I think is just such a small sliver of who a student and their capabilities. And I don't think that it's, I think there's a lot of cultural bias to those types of testing, and
I can agree with
everyone has different advantages. My parents aren't college educated people, right? And I didn't have tutors and this and that growing up, so I think a lot of it comes down to economics and things like that. So yeah, I could go off on a tangent, but if there's one thing I could change, it would be high stakes testing.
Okay, that's a good choice in my opinion, because I kind of agree with that in a little bit of a way. But now let's get off of that topic, and now let's go on to what this show is about, sports, of course.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
We got to start off somewhere. I would say we were going to start off strong, but you know what? I was like, let's get this out of the way, because I already knew that I was going to ask this regardless. And it is definitely definitely get rid of this out of the way. The Phillies review after a disappointing Red October.
Phillies view?
Phillies review.
Phillies review.
How would you review their season, the postseason, after everything that has happened?
I mean, the first half of the year was just best record in the major leagues.
Yeah.
Post All-Star game, the London game, it just seemed like it just was a downward spiral. Then they got themselves together, high hope for the playoffs, and clearly, they got the first round bye, and another disappointing loss. I love the Phillies playoff baseball. More than that, it brings your family and friends together.
Yes,
You're
it's
watching.
Amazing. I love watching it.
Yeah,
it's so good.
So, you always wish that. And in Philadelphia, we demand the best. And with the type of roster we have and the payroll we have to have another letdown season, after they made the World Series appearance, 3 years ago, then they went to the championship last year, and they lost to the Diamondbacks Game 7. I was actually at that game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then this year to get knocked out, it was a letdown.
Yeah.
It's disappointing just because you want that playoff Red October baseball.
I feel like last year it was mainly the manager that I felt like was giving us the problems in the postseason. Now I'm looking at it this year, and it's like, well, you can't blame the manager really anymore, because it goes on to the players and how they play, how they prepare themselves for these games, and it's looking back to whoever the team captain is. If it is Bryce Harper, who I believe it might be, I feel like the players themselves should have did more for management and the pitchers too, because not all the blame can also go to the pitchers, because pitchers are going to either have a really good night or a really bad night, especially in the postseason. And I really feel something's got to change with the players' mindsets before games.
I agree with you. I think in the Mets series, outside of Harper and Castellanos, it was like a team batting average. We don't have Jamie from the Rogan Show fact-checking us here, but I think it was 188, you know what I mean? You're not going to win games in the postseason, and that's what we live and die on the long ball, and when you go cold, you're not supporting the pitchers, any manager, any pitcher. If the run support isn't there, you're not hitting. It's basic fundamentals of baseball. It's the hardest thing to do in all sports. I understand that, is hit a baseball, but frustrating. Bats went cold again, and they need to figure it out. They need to figure it out.
I agree with that. I also got to say one last thing to add on with baseball. I've been wanting this my whole life as a baseball fan. We need to bring Mike Trout to Philadelphia. Bring him home, because I feel like it's not only that would be amazing, but it's also the fact I feel like he could be finally full and healthy without having to worry about carrying his team on his back like he did with the Angels. And I also feel that it also goes back to he can teach this team so much, because they are amazing hitters when they show up and they give their best effort. Mike Trout will make sure that they give their best effort every single week. He's not going to come over to this team just for you guys to let him do all the heavy hitting and you guys can just, pick and choose when you want to step up for the team. He'll make sure you give your best effort every single time.
Yeah, and I think Harper has that same type of mentality, but it's hard for one person to shoulder that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Did he sign long term? Didn't he sign like real long term?
Who, Mike Trout?
Yeah. Because I remember like when he was a free agent and was like, the Phillies, and people were courting him. Yeah, I think he signed a ridiculously long contract. I don't know, but I don't think we'll ever have the opportunity to get him.
Which is unfortunate.
I
wish he could just come up.
That would be a franchise changer. I agree with that.
All right, now on to the NFL. We got to talk about football in general. We got to talk about the Eagles, though, because I know you're a big Eagles fan. I'm not a big Eagles fan.
Check out the kicks.
Those kicks are fire.
Got the Eagles Nike Pegasus on, yup.
Okay, that's actually tough.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Eagles fan, but that's awesome. Okay, so since you're a big Eagles fan, we got to talk about Nick Sirianni. We got to talk about what's going on with him, what's been going on in the weeks and stuff like that. I don't know what to say. I'm just...
I hear you. I know, like last week when he was chirping at the fans and things like that, and then you hear the radio, TV personalities putting them on blast, like, grow up, you know what I mean? And I think when you look at Nick Sirianni, he seems like a great father, a family man, and has a good relationship with most of the players. There is a lot of rumors that the relationship between him and Jalen Hurts is kind of strained, and then when you go out and put that performance up against the Browns and fans, fans are brutal.
Yeah, fans are brutal regardless.
So again, I look at it as myself. If I was in that position, you have that fire intensity about you that sometimes, even like in my role, like barking back to students when you're like, well, you're a professional and you should hold yourself to a higher standard. So I've been guilty of doing those things. So, I'm not going to throw stones in a glass house, but just listening to media personality, TV personalities talk about it, it's like, let's focus on the job at hand. I do think there's a lot of questions. This is a talented bunch that they have, offensively. Beginning of the year, we're talking Super Bowl opportunities.
Yeah, definitely.
Now they're the only NFL team and the only team in the NFL that haven't scored in the first quarter. Football's about quick starts, and if you're constantly playing from behind, that's going to catch up to you. Last year they got off to a great start and then went flat. Well, if you look at those games again, late starts, and they won a lot of close games that could have went either way, and eventually that stuff catches up to you. So I'm hoping they could right the ship, because the talent's there, but they just got to put it together. But I am not confident. I would have to admit my confidence level is not at an all-time high.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I would have to say the Eagles, how I felt about the Eagles is I looked at this roster and I said one of two things is going to happen. It's either they adapted by adding on Saquon, doing what they did in the past with DeAndre Swift, but much more of that, and you would have a much more dominant run game. Your passing game's elite. You could actually go 17-0 with that kind of play style, with that level of playability to that. And I looked at the other thing, and it's like, so we're talking about the good scenario for the Eagles before the season. We're talking about they're going to utilize Saquon in ways not even the Giants could. And I'm looking at it like it's kind of looking like they're just doing what the Giants did, which is making the whole game rely upon him, you know?
I absolutely agree with you. With this type of talent, like that's where you gotta, like we were talking about the Phillies.
Yep.
Do you put blame on the manager? And well, if you look at the Eagles, even just while you're watching the game, some of those going for it on fourth down instead of taking the points and
Yep.
the analytics, and that's what Coach Sirianni's known for. Well, all right, well, if something's broken, you're not having success, you need to change it. And
Yeah.
I just feel like the question you asked earlier, like how are you changing as an educator, you know? Like if something's not working, you got to change it. So
100%.
as a coach, apply that same type of philosophy. What you're doing right now isn't necessarily working, so what changes are you making? So
Yeah.
I think that's like the biggest concern.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. All right, now we're going to talk about some basketball.
Oh,
Okay, you a big basketball fan?
I love basketball.
Same.
It's my number one.
That's my number one, too.
I bet.
All right, so we got to talk about the Sixers, everything that's going on with the Sixers. Okay, so I've seen recently that the Sixers star players have been going down left and right. Jared McCain last night. Then you had Paul George with his hyperextended knee.
Yep.
Didn't Embiid get hurt too?
Embiid's always hurt.
He's
right?
always hurt. Yeah,
every year
at
it's
this
something.
point, yeah. How do you feel about the Sixers going into the season? Are you confident in them? How are you feeling?
No, I'm not confident. I'm not.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that.
Love the Sixers, love Embiid, love Maxey, love the Paul George pickup. But I'm glad we let Tobias go. But I don't see a clear path. I don't. Embiid, you know, when you're that big, you're just bound to start breaking down, you know, that true type of center. And I know he's developed his game to outside perimeter and things like that, but you want to see him down low a lot. And there he is hanging out by the three-point line. And, so
it's like
not a lot of confidence with
Yeah,
the
I get
Sixers.
that.
Will they be a playoff team? Will they be a contender? Yeah. When you have Embiid, when you have Maxey, Paul George on the team, like that's a pretty good three-headed monster. But you got to depend on your bench, you know.
Yeah.
And you like look at our bench. Like there's some old people coming off the bench in basketball terms. I think we got rid of a lot of the dogs that we had, those enforcer type of tough guys. And, you know, now you have Kyle Lowry, you know, he's on the back end of his career. What's the Kyle Oubre?
Kelly Oubre.
Kelly Oubre. Like, I want some dogs.
Yeah,
I want some dogs out there.
I like the coach, Nick Nurse.
I do like Nick
He's
Nurse.
doing a really good job with these guys. The problem is it stems from who you want to go out and get for your team, how much you're going to spend on this team. It also goes back to drafting. Sixers in the past haven't always been great at drafting smart with these guys. Whether they did draft smart and the guys just didn't put the effort in, or it'll go back to guys that they should have drafted and could have, but passed up on and thought they weren't going to be good enough.
So I lived through the whole tanking, like where they lost on purpose in order to get good draft picks, and a lot of those draft picks never materialized. I mean, how many number one picks do you have? And I know that's what all of the experts were saying, but Markelle Fultz, Ben Simmons, you know, like we just lost so many valuable draft picks. So many valuable draft picks, and now we're left with what? You know, and you look at a team like Boston, they're not just signing all these free agents. They're developing through the draft. Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Also, the problem that I'm seeing is it's also just an NBA in general in terms. It's how head coaches will get fired. Monty Williams was the head coach for the Pistons, I believe, right?
Yep.
He gets fired. Monty Williams is not a problem for the Pistons. It's the true question of what's he supposed to do when you want him to tank and when you're telling him we're going to build through the draft, tank, but then you fire him.
Yeah.
He can't do much. He's doing his best to get these guys to give out their best effort. when you talk about how bad this team was playing, it not only goes back to him, but it also goes to the level of skill that this team has. Cade Cunningham, yeah, at times he stepped up for his team, but also at times he didn't do much for his team to really try to fight and compete in games, you know?
Yeah, it's we have a pretty old team, you know what I mean? Like Embiid, even, I know he's not very old, but just with the injury history, he's probably on the back end of his career. And the whole NBA now, it's just building these super teams, like just trying to put something together for one championship.
What happened back to building a team from the ground up and building smart? That's what the Knicks had, I thought. Knicks, okay, you add some of these guys that were passed up from their teams. You build a chemistry like the Nova boys. And then, like I predicted this because I was sitting at home in the summer and I was like, you know what? If it means for them to win a championship and it means to get a big man star, they're going to let go all these guys like Isaiah Hartenstein. I said, who are you going to pick between Mitchell Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein? You're picking Mitchell Robinson. I already know that for a fact, even though they should have picked Hartenstein. Then after that, they decide, you know what? We're going to pass up on somebody else. We're going to go with, okay, we have Dante DiVincenzo. We got Josh Hart. One of them is going to be gone.
Yep.
You're packaging one of them up with Julius Randle, and you're shipping both of those boys and getting them out of here.
Yep.
And I said, the moment they do that is the moment they ruin the chemistry, the fun that this team is. This team, in my personal opinion, I'm not a Knicks fan. I'm far from a Knicks fan. I don't like the Knicks. I can't stand them. But I will say this about the Knicks. They are fun to watch with these guys. The chemistry is awesome. In my opinion, I wanted them to go to the NBA Finals. Yeah. I was like, this team is so fun to watch. Yeah. They deserve it the way that they're playing. Yeah. Jalen Brunson's a star. He's built himself up to this. He's an amazing player. And then now I'm looking back at it and I'm like, you got rid of your best three-point shooter. Yeah, you got Karl Anthony Towns who can give you some more than what Julius Randle can give you at that position and in three-point shooting too. But I do feel like the chemistry has been ruined with this team, and it feels off a little bit.
Well, going back to the question about the Sixers and drafting, like I remember they drafted Mikal Bridges. I was so excited. Local guy, Great Valley, Villanova. Did it the right way. Redshirted his freshman year under Jay Wright, developed him into a player. We drafted him, and then just trade him away. And look at what he's developed into. Like, how do we continuously miss on that? So
yeah, I agree with you.
I agree. I agree. It's frustrating. Very frustrating.
It is.
Of what could have been,
What could have been for the team. They had so many
Jason Tatum, right?
Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, pass up on that. But I will say with Embiid, because I really do like Embiid.
Oh, he's a stud.
He's a stud. The only problem I'm seeing is it's the problems that I'm seeing with like what happened in FIBA and why he didn't do too well in FIBA. It was the Olympics. It was because he's a guy who looks for fouls. And in these moments and scenarios, you need to go back and you need to look at film of the older guys. You cannot always rely on fouling in today's game. That's the problem, in my opinion, with today's game. It is these guys are looking for cheap fouls to get some cheap, easy points because they don't really feel like having to actually put in all the effort of putting in the points, going around this guy to get some points for your team. And that's a problem that I'm seeing with today's game. That's why I love watching like older basketball a little bit sometimes because they would always put in the best effort. They wouldn't have to rely on fouls or three-pointers all throughout the game. It was old school hardcore
bully ball,
defense.
Bully ball.
Yeah, I love that kind of basketball. Yeah. That's the kind of basketball I play. That's my play style for basketball.
I agree. Yeah, the game has definitely changed. The ticky-tack fouls, the every play down the court, like it's every play. Like, oh, foul, blowing the whistle. Like, come on,
Yeah, it's not fun.
Every play is a foul. If you look at it from a technical standpoint, football, everyone's going to hold every single play. There's going to be technically, is it a foul? Okay, but it's like, that's just not the way the game was developed.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I agree with that. Well, do you watch any other sports at all, like wrestling, hockey, anything like that?
So basketball is my passion. I do like the NBA, but more so than anything, I love college basketball, love high school basketball. You recognize?
Yeah, UConn. Yep.
So UConn, big UConn fan. Mr. Morris is not jumping on the bandwagon. My best friend is actually brother-in-law. His brother-in-law is Dan Hurley, who's coach at UConn.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's
so
crazy.
I'm good friends with his wife, so we go out to UConn games each year, go out to the tournament, watch them play. So my family, very big UConn fans. I grew up with basketball. I'm not sure I know. We didn't get into it, but my uncle was a very well-known coach in Philadelphia, coached at LaSalle University for 19 years.
Wow.
Speedy Morris, yep, that's my godfather. Very successful coach, but even more so, just a better man. And he's one of my idols and heroes. So I grew up around the game of basketball.
Yeah.
So when I was a little kid, like I'm talking 6, 7 years old, we went to every LaSalle game because my uncle was the coach of LaSalle. So basketball it's a part of my life. So I would say it's my favorite sport, but the NBA, I'm a fan. But college and the high school level,
college basketball is just amazing.
Yeah,
It's
I love
wonderful.
it. I love it.
I love college basketball. That's my favorite time of
Me
year.
too.
March Madness.
Oh, the best.
Amazing.
The best.
I love it every year.
The storylines, the individuals you get to hear about, and then just having that connection with Coach Hurley. His son's on the team, who's my buddy, his wife. So, that's and it's more so like we were talking about the Phillies. Like that's what brings my family together. We'll watch the game together, so it's enjoyable.
Yep, I agree with that. That's very awesome. I did not know that about Coach Hurley.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I don't even know how that happens. That's just wonderful in my opinion.
He's the GOAT, man. He's a good coach. I know not everyone necessarily appreciates his style, but like anything, he might come across as brash and tough on his kids, but you ask any one of his players, he loves them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's just trying to set them up for success, and he's very demanding and very hard, and he expects nothing but the best, but he truly loves those kids. They're part of his family, and his wife, who I said, who's my buddy, like she's the team mom, so coaching, teaching, all of that
intertwines with
everything intertwines with each other, and it's sort of the same philosophy. We have high expectations for our students, our players. We expect nothing but the best, and if you're not putting in the effort, we're going to be on you. But off the court, it's all good-hearted. We're just trying to prepare you for success and get the most out of you. Try to have you achieve things maybe you didn't even know what's achievable.
Okay. Well, thank you for being the guest of today's episode of Bray Sports Talk, Mr. Morris.
My God.
This has been a great
job.
time.
Great job.
Thank you.
Proud of you. Keep up the good work. I think this is a great club, what you guys are doing.
Yep.
I was honored to be asked to do this, especially by you. I think so highly of you.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work, and thank you for including me. And all of you people listening, if you're a student here at Wissahickon, Mr. Morris, student support teacher, if you ever need anything, I am in the D Hall admin suite. Come see me.
All right.
All right.
Well, see you guys next time for Bray's Sports Talk.